Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Welcome to NADO's 39th Annual Conference. We will be starting in about 1 minute. Before we begin, we want to cover a few housekeeping items. On your attendee's screen, you can enter comments or questions in the chat. We hope you will take advantage of the opportunity to engage with our speakers and other attendees. This session is being recorded. We recognize and thank the California Healthcare Foundation for being our Petabyte sponsor. Information about all conference sponsors is available in the sponsor area of the platform. Please take a few minutes to visit each sponsor's booth, where you can find information about them and find game tokens. Game tokens are keywords or phrases used in the token hunt game for a chance to win a prize in the daily drawings. Now, let me turn the stage over to Norm Thurston, NADO's Executive Director. Norm, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Erica. It's wonderful to be with you. We had a fabulous opening keynote presentation, and this is our plenary session just back to back. Sorry that we had to switch platforms and switch rooms, but a little technical need to do that. This session is entitled Communicating Data, Data Analytics and Visualization. This session is sponsored by Milliman and Med Insight. Our moderator today will be Rong Yi. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to have a few remarks first from Milliman Med Insight. That's our sponsor.
Hey there, I'm Todd Fessler, Chief Revenue Officer at Med Insight. We're part of Milliman, one of the most trusted brands in all of healthcare. Med Insight is a healthcare technology company specializing in data, analytics, and most importantly, insights. After all, insight is in our name. Who uses our products? Hundreds of payers, providers, and purchasers rely on the insights that Med Insight delivers every day. And every day, thousands of users log on to our platforms to get the data and information they need to do their jobs. This could take the form of an analyst looking into an overutilization problem, or a data scientist wanting to leverage AI and ML models to uncover better ways to improve clinical outcomes. It could be an executive preparing for a board meeting and needing key metrics about organizational performance. These are just a few examples of how the market leverages our products. Payers, large and small, have used Med Insight products for more than 25 years. And the number of ACOs now using our VBC platform, well, it's approaching 200. Along the way, we've become highly proficient in managing data. You cannot stick around this industry for 25 years and not be good at handling data. Ingestion, integration, managing. It may not show up in the software as a flashy feature, but data quality is not just a nice to have, it is mandatory. And it's why states like Virginia and New Hampshire have trusted us to manage their APCD initiatives for many years. Our data confidence model helps our customers, it powers our platform, and it has become a real backbone for the Med Insight infrastructure. We've been innovating since our founder, Kent Sasha, started the company in 1998, and we will continue to innovate. Recently, we launched the Med Insight Health Cloud. This was a result of a digital transformation strategy that we embarked on starting in 2020. The Med Insight Health Cloud is already transforming our business. It's absolutely improving the customer experience. That's everything from increased software performance to enabling our AI capabilities. Our health cloud offers the market full access to Med Insight's portfolio of analytics, benchmarks, and referential data. We're headquartered in Seattle and have offices across the country. Our employees are committed to our mission of being the healthcare industry's most trusted source of analytics. If you're a customer today, thank you. And if you're not already a customer, give me a call. I'd love to show you around. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. I would now like to bring Rong Yi to the stage, who will be our moderator for today. So Rong, whenever you're ready, let's go ahead and have you come on stage.
Hi, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session on communicating data, data analytics, and visualization. My name is Rangi. I'm a health economist by training. I'm now a principal and leading our Milliman's data science modeling practice. I'm thrilled to be here to moderate this session. Today, we'll be hearing from 3 experts on how to unlock the full potential of data analytics through effective data visualization and communication techniques. So I've been in this business for almost 25 years. Data visualization is something that I almost feel that takes a whole dimension that's not that very well trained, at least when as a health economist back then. It's more than just charts and graphs. It's actually a tool that transforms this complex information and thinking into very clear and accessible, actionable insights. So in healthcare, we work with a very diverse audience, actually. So like clinicians, policymakers, patients, and so on, each comes with a different levels of data literacy and also unique perspectives and needs. By tailoring our visualizations in a thoughtful manner, we really empower the audiences to understand and act on data. So today we're going to be hearing from the following experts. So first we'll have Ryan Smith, who's a expert in data visualization. He's with 20 years of experience in data visualization, designing and translations, and so on. And Ryan works with the Center for Improving Value in Healthcare at Civic. Second, we'll hear from Emily Sim from Comagine Health, and who's passionate about using analytics and improving community health outcomes, and with 25 years of experience. You look very young, Emily. The third is Gaolee Liu from California's Department of Healthcare Access and Information. So logistically, we will have each speaker finish the presentation, and then we'll have a little time to allow for questions and answers and move on to the next. So with that, let's begin with Ryan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Smith, the in-house graphic designer at the Center for Improving Value in Healthcare, or CIVIC for short. I'm super excited to be here today to talk to you about considering accessibility and visualizing big health data. And while big health data is mentioned in the title, I do want to stress that what I'm going to talk to you today about can be applied to any topic. CIVIC is a nonprofit that provides data and resources to improve healthcare in Colorado and across the nation. As the administrator of the Colorado All-Payer Claims Database, we collect and analyze healthcare claims data to promote transparency, inform policy, and advance health equity. What is accessibility? And accessibility refers to the usability of a system, in our case, that's our data visualizations, by people with disabilities. And really, accessibility ensures that everyone, regardless of their abilities, can access and use the system effectively. And I will say that accessible design is just good design. By planning and designing for accessibility, we're designing systems that are more inclusive to everyone, not just those with a disability. And I like to use the analogy of a wheelchair ramp to really drive this idea home, that while designed specifically for people in wheelchairs, it benefits everyone. A parent with a stroller, someone with luggage, or even someone with a sprained ankle can easily navigate the ramp. This same idea applies to accessibility in our visualizations. It's going to aid in a better, more inclusive experience for everyone. So why does accessibility matter? Well, approximately 12 million Americans aged 40 or older have a visual impairment, including 1 million who are legally blind. The most common type of color blindness is red-green color blindness, affecting 95% of people with color vision deficiency. That's roughly 14 million men and close to 1 million women. And over 22 million Americans use assistive technology to access computers and other electronic devices. And just a quick note on assistive technologies. They're essentially lifelines for people with vision or motor impairments. They offer tools like screen readers, magnifiers, and voice control, helping these individuals navigate the world and our visualizations more independently. Accessibility promotes equality, inclusion, and human rights. By ensuring that our information is accessible to everyone regardless of their abilities, we're creating a more equitable and inclusive system. Additionally, there are practical benefits. Accessible content can reach a wider audience, improve understanding, demonstrate a commitment to social responsibility, and in my opinion, it's just the right thing to do. Also, let's not forget that some of us may be motivated by legal compliance too. Those that work at government agencies, public health businesses, educational institutions. Regardless if you need to be legally compliant or not, many private companies are voluntarily adopting accessibility standards to improve their reputation and reach a wider customer base. I'd like to take a moment to talk about vision impairments. And because our data visualizations are mostly visual, it's important to understand how different types of visual impairments can affect how people see and use our visualizations. So in short, visual impairments are any conditions that affect a person's eyesight. And while there are many different types of visual impairments to consider when designing for accessibility, for the sake of the limited time we have today for this presentation, I'm going to be focusing on color blindness and contrast sensitivity loss. So first, I'm going to talk about color blindness, specifically red-green color blindness, as it is the most common type. Individuals with this condition may have difficulty distinguishing between shades of red, green, brown, orange, and yellow. So I'm showing you a simulation here. This first view is what the visualization looks like to the unimpaired eye. We're able to see all the colors and connect the relationship between the legend and the data points on the graph. We can clearly differentiate the colors and make those connections. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like for those with the red-green color blindness. And you can see this is the same chart, but now primarily the orange and green colors that we were able to differentiate before with the unimpaired eye are now essentially the same color, making this chart essentially useless for those with that impairment. Next, we're going to look at contrast sensitivity loss. And this affects a person's ability to perceive and distinguish foreground and background objects or patterns with subtle differences in contrast. So this chart, this view here is to the unimpaired eye. And in its current state, we can make out the information on the chart, the text, and so on. And I will say that the contrasts for the elements in this chart and text are not great. So even to the unimpaired eye, it's not as clear as it could be. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like looking through the lens of somebody that has contrast sensitivity loss. So that chart that was visible to the unimpaired eye is now barely visible to those with contrast sensitivity loss. So this really highlights the importance of ensuring that our text and chart elements are meeting a contrast minimum. So now we have an understanding of at least a few visual impairments to consider when designing for accessibility. So how do we ensure that we're being compliant and meeting the standards to ensure compliance? And thankfully, there is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG for short. And these are a comprehensive set of principles, guidelines, and testable success criteria that ensure that web content, including data visualizations, are accessible to people with disabilities. So at the top are 4 principles that provide the foundation for web accessibility, and these are perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Each principle is further divided into success criteria, which are specific measurable outcomes that must be met to achieve compliance with the principle. So while there are many success criteria within WCAG, it's important to note that not all success criteria are applicable to every type of web content. And here I've highlighted the top 5 that I feel should be considered most when designing for accessibility for data visualizations. For the sake of the limited time frame of this presentation, we're going to be focusing on text alternatives and distinguishable. So under the guideline of text alternatives, we have the success criteria of non-text content. And what this is saying is that every picture, video, or other non-text thing on a website should have words that describe it. Really, this is important for those with vision impairments that are using assistive technology like a screen reader. So as the screen reader is combing over the information on the web page or the visualization, and it's reading back those text elements to the user, as it gets to an image or a graph, and the user is unable to see what's being conveyed in that image or graph, the alternative text provides a way for the screen reader to convey the information to the impaired user. So really a good example of alt text for this would be something like a bar chart comparing the number of emergency department visits for mental health or potential self-harm by payer type in 2016 and 2021. Medicaid visits increased by 196% from 2016 to 2021. So we're giving the high-level takeaway, we're explaining the type of chart that it is, and we're giving general information to really help convey what's being shown. And it's important to note that alt text, you don't want to go into great detail about providing data for each data point and details on every single number. What you want to do in this case is somewhere next to the chart, provide a link to the underlying data tables so the user can, if they want, get more into the weeds with the data. So now we're going to take a look at the guideline of distinguishable. And really what this is saying is don't rely on color alone to tell people something. I do not want to rely only on colors. So I am implementing the use of shapes in this line chart. So even if I'm not able to see the color, I can understand the relationship between the elements in the legend and the data points that they relate to in the chart. Today, under the guideline of distinguishable, we have contrast minimum. And really what this is saying is just make sure the text is easy to read. So you can see with the example at the bottom, the non-accessible text, it really doesn't stand out from the white background. It just doesn't pop enough. It doesn't meet the requirement of the contrast minimum set by WCAG. And the accessible example on the right does. So how do you ensure you're meeting this contrast minimum? Thankfully, there are, again, tools online that will run an accessibility check on your text to let you know if it is passing or not. But in this case, I'm using accessibleweb.com's color contrast checker, and it's allowing me to input different colors in my palette to determine if they're passing a meeting contrast minimum. And what's great about this is it shows you the WCAG compliance results as well. You'll notice there's AAA and AA, and these are just levels of compliance for WCAG. And I will say that generally, most organizations work to adhere to AA compliance. This is a topic that really warrants a much, much larger time frame to talk about. So we've just scratched the surface today. But really, I want to stress that accessibility and data visualization is crucial to ensure that everyone, regardless of their abilities, can access and understand the information presented. By following the accessibility guidelines, you can create visualizations that are inclusive, user-friendly, and compliant with legal requirements. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Ryan. I have a question from the audience. Here it is. What tools do you use to simulate the impairments? Do you have recommendations?
I do. So being a designer, I often work in Adobe Suite and a lot in Adobe Illustrator. And within Illustrator, there are tools to simulate different color blindness. So I do use that quite often. But if you don't have access to Adobe Illustrator, there are lots of tools online that are free to use with the option to pay to get some more robust tools added to the free tool. But the one I like using is it's on the site called coolors.co. So it's COOLORS.co. And what's really cool about that site is it allows you to not only test your brand's color palette or really just test any color palette you want to work with and check that against different color blindness. So what it'll do is show you your color palette, and then below that it'll show you, depending on which color blindness you want to simulate or test against, it'll show you what it looks like through the lens of that color blindness. So that's a really useful tool. Then there's a handful of other ones that'll help you simulate everything from color blindness to contrast and so on. So really a quick Google search will yield quite a bit of results, but Coolors is definitely one to check out.
Oh, great. And then a follow-up question. Are you aware of tools that work better for different types of data vizies? So interactive reports, like Tableau reports versus static graphics.
Tools in terms of like testing or in terms, I guess in terms of testing, if it's a follow-up question. So really, I mean, if you're looking at static or interactive dashboards, regardless, you're going to want to test with screen readers to really ensure that the information is being picked up via screen reader. So those users with vision impairments, their needs are getting met. So that's a big one. And really, regardless if it's static or not, you really want to ensure that you're working with a color palette that's been vetted and cleared to really meet the needs, at least of that red-green color blindness, as that's the most common one. But in terms of tools specifically for static or interactive, really, like when I'm building out static infographics as a PDF, I'm still testing with a screen reader. I'm still testing with my keyboard to ensure that I can kind of tab through the information that's set up in a logical order. So there's a lot of similarities between static and interactive visualizations, thankfully.
Great. How are we doing on time? No, do we have maybe time for one more question? Okay, so Ryan, I'm going to ask you a question. What is your typical process for ensuring compliance with the guideline? You mentioned the web.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, WCAG it's very robust, and not all of it may be applicable to your organization's needs. So it's really familiarizing yourself with WCAG. And a good place to start is with the guidelines that I highlighted in my presentation. So once you're familiar with those and you can kind of identify the ones you should meet regarding your audience's needs, it's really going through WCAG and kind of comparing and meeting the requirements of their success criteria. And sometimes it requires you, in the case of your palette, to actually take the time before and essentially, vetting that palette and making sure it's, because there really are no tools to look at colors in a visualization and say, this is meeting the requirements or not. That's kind of like up to us as designers to really ensure that. There are tools within programs that will help you say like, oh, this might be low contrast or so on. But in terms of saying, this green isn't working with this red, like that's really up to us to decide or to ensure. But really, familiarizing yourself with WCAG and then testing is just incredibly crucial, and really building that into your workflow and your scheduling for the project. I can't underestimate that enough.
Great, thank you. If there's no more questions, we want to give Ryan a round of applause. Thanks for your great sharing. I learned is it coolers or colors or coolers?
Coolers, yeah. And again, this is a big topic, and we just scratched the surface today. But thank you so much.
Wonderful, thank you. And then we're going to be hearing from Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Sim. I'm Comagine Health Senior Director of Analytics. And Comagine Health is a national nonprofit organization, and we work collaboratively with our partners to improve healthcare in all the communities in which we serve. Now, this is a mini version of a presentation that we like to do regularly at Comagine Health. And the reason why we do this presentation is because of this right here. What is the difference between data and information? Well, data is just a collection of raw facts, but information is data that's been analyzed to extract meaning. And often we want people to be able to take action on that meaning. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to get the meaning out of the data that we're sharing with them. Here's an example of raw data. This is the timely and effective care data set from Hospital Compare Care. You can use it to compare hospitals on quality measures across the nation. This would be really hard to drill into and to make sense of, to give to someone and say, hey, why don't you compare some hospitals on a measure? But these are all the hospitals within close driving distance of my house, and this is how they're doing on influenza vaccinations of their personnel. And the two darkest hospitals are the ones that are closest to me. They're in my valley. Well, now this is easy. right? It's easy to look at this and to see who's the best, who's the worst, and to see that there's a big difference in quality regarding that particular measure within my valley. So the reason why that graphic was so easy to look at and to use is because of something called pre-attentive processing. So attentive processing and pre-attentive processing just refer to the way that your brain is analyzing information. If you are a fan of Stephen Few, then you know that he's done a lot of research on best practices in data visualization and has written a lot on it. You're already familiar with this. But attentive processing takes focus. It's when you're really focusing on something, you're drilling in on some information, you are ignoring other information. So it's focus, takes time and attention. Pre-attentive processing is automatic. Your brain does it subconsciously. It's easy. So we want to use pre-attentive processing whenever we can when we're making data visualizations or infographics. Here's an example. Tell me how many times the number 6 appears on this slide. So now you're looking at each number. Is it a 6? Is it not? And trying to count them up, and you're hoping you don't miss one. Way easier though, if I bold all those 6s. Now it's easy to count the 6s on this slide. That's because of pre-attentive processing. Your brain can see that difference. It immediately grabs it. You don't have to think about it. So some visual attributes that use pre-attentive processing that you should incorporate into data visualizations and infographics are length, width, shape, size, drawing a circle around or a box around something, color, that's hue and also intensity, gradient, and position in the 2D plane, up, down, right, left. Our brain is so good at just doing all these things automatically. So I want to show you some good examples. These examples are all from my colleague, Steve Donnelly. Thank you, Steve. And I'm not going to go into detail on what we're seeing here. I just want to show you how he's using these. You can see on this one, he's using color to make it easy to differentiate in quality measures on how different counties are doing compared to each other, and then ranking them in that 2D spatial relationship. You can see that. On these ones, you can see that he's showing length. It's easy to see and to compare the length of one bar to others, or that the distance to the average that you can see with the other line. On these trend lines, he's using color. You could see there's the county score and the average county score and the interquartile range, and it's easy for your brain to start to make sense of these trend lines over time because of the ways that he's used color. On this one, he's using shapes and color, and the different shapes mean something, and the different colors mean something, and they grab your attention, and you can use the legend to know what means what. But once you understand, it's very easy to read and to get information out of a graphic like this one. So you need to ask, what story are you trying to tell, and how easy are you making it to tell that story? And often when we're trying to tell data stories, particularly to the public, we love to use infographics. So here's an infographic that I grabbed off of the internet. I have a source for it here. You could go check it out. But this is an infographic that was created to help women in the UK make decisions about hormone replacement therapy and the additional risk that gives you for breast cancer. I'm just going to drill in and just look at this little bit here. So what they're showing here these are rates per 1,000 in a particular population, age 50 to 59. And it's a 5-year cancer risk. And they're saying that there will be 23 new diagnoses of breast cancer out of every 1,000 people. And then there's an additional 4 for those that are on combined hormone replacement therapy. Now, as a woman that is, close to that age group, I look at that and I could think that seems like a huge increased risk. Moving from 23 to 27, that's really big. I don't know if it would be worth it to me. There are a lot of benefits to hormone replacement therapy, but this seems like a really big risk. So there's something missing from this, some very important context. And the context that's missing as they're telling this story is the context of overall risk. So what would overall risk look like? Well, here's 1,000 women in little icons, and then 23 of them are blue, representing the general risk of breast cancer, and then the additional 4 from the combined hormone replacement therapy. And I could look at this and think, okay, so my risk is actually really low overall. And then my increased risk, it's a little bit higher, but it might be worth it for the benefits of the combined hormone replacement therapy. And I could start to make an informed decision with that broader understanding. So what story are they trying to tell? What were they trying to share? And I would propose they really are trying to share overall risk and then that increased overall risk. And I think this does that a little bit better. But you can't fit this on that infographic that they had there, right? So there's a reason why they did it the way they did. But is it perhaps a little bit misleading or could it be misinterpreted? Now, this is a fantastic use of icons in an infographic. So here what they're looking at is the relative risk for maternal mortality, comparing Black mothers, white mothers, and Hispanic mothers. Now, in general, I would like to say that when you want to compare different groups to each other, that a bar graph is the way to go. It's simple. It's really easy. In fact, I'm just going to take this exact same data and just show you that for a second. Here, it's much easier to see that the Black mothers have 3 times the risk. However, you're going to lose something, though, in this bar chart. So let me just go back up for a second to this particular infographic. So what is so impactful about this infographic is that it's showing people. It's 55 individual, real women who are going to be impacted, compared to 19 and compared to 18 real women. And when you're thinking of it as individual people, it becomes a much more impactful story. And I think actually demonstrates that disparity really, really well. Even if this one is simpler, and yes, your brain can easily see that it's 3 times the risk for white and Hispanic mothers. I prefer the previous version. Now, just a little bit on pie charts and donut charts and stacked bar charts. These are all over the place. We've all made them. They're very easy to make in every kind of business intelligence software. But I propose that generally they're not the way to go. And the reason why, Stephen Few does not love these, and the reason why is because it is hard to compare across groups. It takes attentive processing to look at these graphs and to get information from them. For instance, if you just look at that stacked bar chart, and if I asked you to look at how the orange bar is changing over time, or how that green bar, it's easy to see the red because it's on the bottom and it's anchored to the bottom. But those other ones aren't anchored, and it becomes really hard to compare. Now, the donut chart here for this diabetes type, I want to look at that for a second. So that's this one down at the bottom. This is looking at, for the American Diabetes Association, the percentage of their research dollars that go into the different types of research by diabetes type. And I think that you could look at that and say, okay, I can tell that type 2 diabetes is the biggest. But how much bigger is it than the other circles? That's hard for our human brains to do. We don't actually do size comparisons in circles all that well. It's the same problem we have with a pie chart. So I just took that information, put it in a bar chart. And now you can see it's really easy, in fact, to see that their type 2 diabetes funding is 10 times their research funding for gestational diabetes. So you need to ask yourself, what is the story you're trying to tell? What is the meaning that you want people to take away from this healthcare data? What actions do you want them to take, and how can you impact them to take those actions by effectively sharing information with them? And I would just like to leave you with a quote by Stephen Few, which is that good communication doesn't just happen. It is a result of good design. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Wonderful presentation. I think that I've learned the critical mindset of like being pre-attentive. So I assuming that comes from cognitive sciences to begin with.
Yep. Right? Yes, it does.
It's wonderful, and it prompts us to think about things visually and how it relates to the findings and your messages to the general public. This is wonderful. I wish I could rewatch your talk in a later time and implement some of that in my own work. I wonder if the audience had questions to ask to Emily.
I do have to tell you, while we're seeing if they're going to ask anything, I was thinking about Ryan's presentation and talking about being able to see the difference in the gradients, and wondering if on one of my graphs, if you'd be able to see the difference or not, for someone who has a hard time seeing that difference. So I think that I'm learning some good things today too.
Wow. Okay. We have a question now. So, to compare changes across different domain, can't R Shiny be used instead of Power BI?
I actually don't know what our Shiny or Shiny is. I know what Power BI is. So if Isaac, if you want to give us a little more information about that.
Okay. While Isaac, while you type up the further clarification, can I ask you a question, Emily? So we have like many different audiences. They're at various levels of understanding. So when you're thinking about developing the visualizations, have you thought about the role of the audience in that? So for the same, let's say that for the same study, do you have even different visualizations developed for them?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Rong. I actually think that it's probably the second question you should ask yourself about before you start making a data visualization. The first question being, what is it that I'm even interested in here? What are we looking at? But I think that the very next important thing is who the audience is. If you can think about seeing data visualizations as part of say a research article, and you think about how hard those are to understand, and even those of us that have taken a lot of statistics and live in that world, looking at those, it can be really hard to understand. And we certainly don't want to create things like that for the general public. For the general public, we want to be thinking about, could my 14-year-old look at this and understand that? Could my mother look at this and understand that? And how are we doing with the reading level in this graphic? And are there ways for us to make it? I'm a big proponent of always saying things in the simplest possible way that you can. So are we being more inclusive by using the simplest language that we can?
Great.
Yeah, so I'm hearing there's some good stuff going on here about this. It's a way to create interactive dashboards in R.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anything about that. I don't spend very much time in R. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's all right. Can I ask you a follow-up question now?
Yeah.
More broadly. So in your experience, what are some of the most common problems that we regularly see with visualizing healthcare data?
So I would say one of the things that we feel like that we need to pay a lot of attention to is, after asking who the audience is and how should we be creating it for them, but what is the overall context? So I think that a lot of times the way that healthcare information gets shared in the news, for instance, is, and I'm particularly thinking about if there's a new study done and it shows that there's, 160% increase in your risk for XYZ if such and such thing, if you're doing such and such thing. That idea of being able to look at what the overall risk is, what that actually means in an overall risk, I think is really important. And I think that a lot of times that's not done, where someone might say, well, actually your chance was 2 in 10,000 and now your chance is 3 in 10,000. And that's 150% increase, and that sounds really scary, but in real terms, it's not. And I think people can get misled a lot, when especially if you create a graphic that's showing the increase in risk. So you're not showing the 2 out of 1,000 to 3 out of 1,000. You're showing the 150%. So I think that's really important. The other thing I would say about that is because there are so many great tools out there, Tableau, Power BI. Excel does a lot of things. ClickView, there's tons of them. You can do almost any data visualization that it will let you do. And a lot of them will let you choose from a whole suite of things. You can click on it and there's your really pretty data visualization. And I think you'll notice in that presentation, I mostly was showing bar charts, which I realize are boring. Like they're not very exciting. They don't look super exciting, but they often are the simplest way to really be able to show the differences between groups. And so I propose to not get too seduced by all the really cool, awesome things that you could use, and really be thinking about who your audience is and how do you get your message across in the best way possible. It's often great to just want to make things really pretty and really cool looking. So.
Yep. Well, great insights. Looks like their audience is pitching in on the topic on are shiny or shinny.
Yeah. I would assume it's shiny, but yeah.
So some commented that they're all similar in terms of being interactive. Similar. Power BI, are shiny, shinny, Tableau all have capabilities to do visualization interactively, and R is free. It's very powerful and it's very accessible, as in all kids graduating with data science degrees have learned it in school. So great. So we'll have some, for people with lower budget or budget limits, they might be able to leverage that. Well, thank you, Emily. Great insight. So Norm, I think we can move on to the next one. We'll hear from Gaolee.
Thank you all for joining me in this presentation here at the 39th Annual NATO Conference. My name is Gaolee, and I am the Healthcare Analytics Product and Web Coordinator at the California Department of Healthcare Access and Information, also known as HCAI. Very happy to be here with all of you today. Well, we'll jump right in. This presentation is titled Unlocking Insights, Integrating Human-Centered Design Principles for Effective Health Data Dissemination. And in the short time we have together, I hope to be able to provide you some principles you can apply to your modes of communicating health data. All right, before we dive in, I just wanted to share briefly HCAI's values and mission, as they show a part of why human-centered design principles are evident in our data products. We also collect data from thousands of California licensed health facilities and provide over 100 public data reports that include a multitude of healthcare-related topics. So health data dissemination is a huge part of our work. All right, now that you know a little bit about HCAI, let's go over what will be discussed in this presentation. We're going to define data dissemination and human-centered design, describe human-centered design principles, discuss the implementation process, the tools, and the methods, and we'll look through the lens of HCAI's data visualization products to see the process further. And lastly, we'll end with key takeaways. So what is data dissemination and what is human-centered design? Well, data dissemination is defined as the targeted sharing of information. The intention is to take something profound or complex and share it in a clear and straightforward way. For human-centered design, it's a design approach that places the needs, desires, and limitations of the end users at the forefront of the design process. So in a nutshell, human-centered design is a problem-solving technique. Now, the question we must ask ourselves when we think of the two is, why is it imperative that we share our healthcare data with human-centered design principles in mind? So let's dig a little bit deeper to determine that. What are the principles that make up human-centered design? Human-centered design is guided by being people-focused, finding the root issue, having a system perspective, and refinement. Being people-focused means centering on real people in design solutions. It encourages research and observation to overcome biases, requiring teams to engage deeply with the users in their environments. Looking at the root issue means prioritizing people over solutions, which fosters empathy, and this allows us to identify root problems through user insights before seeking solutions. Having a system perspective considers groups and communities, addressing complex societal issues through system analysis. And continuous refinement and iteration are essential to the process. So where do we start? Well, to begin, implementation of human-centered design principles involves a structured but sometimes nonlinear process. I use the common four, makes it easier to remember: discover, define, design, and deliver. I also tack on an important aspect of deliver that I think deserves its own recognition, which is do it again, or reiterate. So your first solution is never going to be your end solution. Discovering the solution is a story in and of itself. We have to ask all the who, what, when, where, and why questions. And a part of the discover phase does help with that, though, by starting with the who. In this phase, our goal at HCAI is to understand the people we're designing for by simply observing and learning about them. This helps us to clarify the user pain points. The explicit ones that users are aware cause them frustrations about their current experience, and sometimes we find some hidden pain points, areas that users can't describe or might not even know exist. Next is the define phase. With each answer in your observations and user research, you'll start to generate insights you can use to create a problem statement from your user's perspective. You and your team can brainstorm ideas for disseminating your data based on insights from the previous phase. And you want to aim to generate a wide range of ideas, including those that may initially seem bad, as those can actually have the root of a good idea in it. There are also 3 characteristics of human-centered design to consider when critiquing ideas. Those are desirability, feasibility, and viability. Is it what users want? Can it be achieved within your organization's scope? Does it align with long-term goals? By combining and evaluating ideas, you can better address user needs and identify which concepts to prototype. The way HCAI does this is through our comprehensive dissemination strategy, as you see on the screen, called the Generational Model Data Analysis, aka GMOD. So as we begin contemplating the design aspects of a product, we have to remember that we can't rely solely on aesthetics. A design must be both engaging and accurate. Conversely, simply presenting users with raw data sets and expecting them to decipher the information is not effective either. And so striking the balance between the visual appeal and clarity of information is essential for effective communication. At HCAI, we often disseminate our data through the Open Data Portal and public reports, which makes data sets widely accessible. However, when we incorporate interactive visualizations or dashboards, we also then begin to engage in more visual dissemination. Visual tools like dashboards, infographics, and images are necessary to present the data in a way that makes patterns, trends, and insights easily understandable. In the design phase of our behavioral health data visualizations, we apply human-centered design principles through empathy, usability, visuals, interactivity, and user testing. We try to understand user needs for information access, recognizing that some users require detailed data while others prefer high-level trends. We implement clear navigation with buttons and create engaging, consistent visuals to reduce cognitive overload. And we also provide interactivity by enabling data exploration through filters and tooltips, providing context and insights for different user types, from researchers to the general public. And conducting user testing during the design phase is paramount to validating design and assessing effectiveness. So here's an example of a recently delivered product. During user interviews, we discovered that our behavioral health data was hard to find on our website. Users wanted a single access point for all behavioral health information and a clearer overview of what we offered. So to address this, I collaborated with our stakeholder analysts to review past user research and engage with internal stakeholders to create a framework focused on user needs. I aimed for a simple yet impactful solution, so I developed a central landing page that stakeholders had requested. The deliver phase emphasizes even more so the communication aspect needed between you and the user, as well as your team. This page includes behavioral health information, a visual snapshot of our data, a compilation of relevant products, and easy access to our open data portal for raw data sets, among other features. During the design phase prior to this, I started by sketching wireframes on paper, then moved to Figma to create digital designs before integrating them into our web and data platforms. I went through multiple rounds of iterations, constantly gathering feedback from stakeholders, which helped me refine the main themes for the product. So back to that snapshot visualization that I briefly glossed over. While working on this product, users expressed a desire for an interactive infographic that could also be printed. This shifted my focus just a bit, but it did feel like the right move since it addressed a key immediate need and fit seamlessly with the webpage I was designing. So the infographic follows human-centered design principles by using clear visuals to simplify complex information, ensuring it's easy to share and understand, and incorporating storytelling to engage users. So far, the landing page and the infographic have received very positive responses from both internal and external stakeholders at HCAI. We're also gearing up for the next generation of this product as we continue to refine it for our users. So lots of information in a short span of time. Here are some key takeaways that hopefully you can utilize in your organization. Prioritizing the needs and perspectives of users, empathizing with our users throughout the process, not just in the discovery phase. Cross collaboration is needed. Other people are needed to be involved. It cannot just be done on our own. Building a formal human-centered product process. It's important to get buy-in from top down, make sure anybody who needs to be involved understands the why. And from there, set up a holistic, iterative approach that communicates clearly, is about being accessible, being contextual and engaging. And just know, through all of this, it's an ongoing process that should be sustainable and scalable to evolve to user needs and meet your organization's long-term goals. So I encourage you to look more deeply at your modes of data dissemination and health data communication strategies. Keep humans at the forefront. Think about how you already are utilizing human-centered design principles, streamline those practices, and explore ways to enhance your connection with users. By utilizing human-centered design principles in health data dissemination, you can increase engagement at your organization, improve people's understanding of your data, gain greater insights, and improve decision-making all around. So with that, these are some resources from this presentation. And again, my name is Gaolee. Feel free to connect with me or HCAI through our social media platforms.
Thank you, Gaolee. Wonderful presentation. I feel that you've the three presentations all have connected the dots. So human design, human-centered design principles. So being cognizant. So, for example, earlier in Ryan's, it's about understanding issues and challenges and barriers to improve accessibility. And then for Emily's portion, her focus is, on the, perception, how to tell the story so people with the visual capabilities, visual thinking capabilities of the human brain, how to tailor the message so that it's more better perceived more sharply. So you basically wrap it all together. So this is center design principle. So wonderful. Thank you. I'm wondering if the audience has any questions so far. If not, can I ask you a question? You talked about like the human-centered design principles. So how do you've implemented that in your work, but how do you measure the success or the impact you've made?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a combination of qualitative and quantitative metrics, assessing how you meet user needs. I know initially it seems like it can be abstract, but it's really simple. The first thing when it comes to qualitative metrics, just getting user feedback. So having them look at the products, use the products, and then see, do we answer the questions of, does it meet your goals and what you want to do with our product? And so that would be the qualitative aspect. And then the quantitative aspect would just be looking at different metrics such as, bounce rates, user interaction with the product. We use Google Analytics to do that. We use Hotjar to do that. We look at some of our email campaigns to kind of see the numbers of click rates and open rates and everything. And so I think that's some of the ways that we've been able to see how we've been implementing human-centered design principles is actually being beneficial for our stakeholders. And so it really is a long-term game, though. It's not something you see right away. It takes time because, again, you're building this relationship with your users and trying to understand them more. But once you sustain that user engagement process that you have and you're refining your product more, that results in growth, and that's always a positive thing. So yeah.
Great, thank you. The audience, someone asked in the audience, will the slide deck be shared? The last slide that you have all the resources in particular will be very helpful. Oh, here's a question. With the rise of AI, do you foresee changes in how dashboards are designed?
I think definitely it will have some impact. There's just no denying that AI is prevalent in so many different industries, and of course it's already being utilized in healthcare analytics to some extent. In terms of what that might look like, I have no idea. I think that's the question that everybody is asking: is how is AI gonna be involved in how we do data dissemination. But I think there will definitely be a lot of benefits to it, and a lot of I would say concerns that we have to keep at the forefront as well. And so, yeah, who knows? We'll see.
Great question, though. I was wondering, when you were mousing over in your presentation, like you said something about story building or storytelling. Does that, is that a good application of, say, the large language model? So say that we have, what does this mean? This means, for you or for a patient of these attributes, and, this is the story that's going to play out. Is that an application potentially?
Yeah, I would say it just really depends on, again, how Emily was saying, what kind of story you're trying to tell. And so, so I would say for large language models, it will have some type of impact and influence, and it will be applied. But again, it just it really depends, and we'll see how that goes. But again, we have to see and make sure that how we're utilizing different software and techniques in ways of data. Does it still align with our organizational goals, and does it still meet user needs at the same time? And so there's definitely a delicate balance between all of it. So,
okay, great. Any further questions from the audience? Or any questions for Ryan and Emily still? Okay, great. And thank you all. Thank you for all the speakers for your great insights. And I've learned a lot, and I absolutely want to rewatch all your presentations and learn and implement the recommendations you put together. I mean, I've learned so much. I've been in this for a very long time. I know it's really hard to use the right visualization to tell a good story. So thank you again. And with that, we can give it back to Norm. We can proceed to the next session. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. Thank you, everyone, for your presentations. And yeah, this was a very active chat. So I'm going to have to go back and read the chats again to make sure I understand everything everyone said. But we right now, networking sessions are coming up. We have 4 networking rooms available. They are capacity controlled. So if the one you want to go to is full, try another one. And if you can't get in today, then come in tomorrow. And some of the same people will be back in tomorrow. So we will see you all over in about 1 minute over at the networking rooms. Thank you, everyone.